Scott, welcome to the journey. And this is Scott Lemke, and he is going to be our guest this morning. And let me just share a little bit about what the journey is about. The journey is really trying to capture conversations with just ordinary people who've had either setbacks in their life, had some type of adversarial, different problems in their life. It could be anything from addiction to mental health to maybe even something that may have happened within their career. And the key part of it is not only the struggle piece, which obviously is part of the story, but then what did they learn from that, and where are they at now, and how are they giving back? So, Scott, welcome to the journey. And
thank you.
So, before we get too far into your story, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and when you have an opportunity to have some fun, when you have an opportunity to go out and relax and have fun, what do you do?
With my daughter. Okay. I coach her softball team, and I help coach her basketball team.
Okay.
So being in the new life that I'm in, not going to bars and not doing that sort of thing, I've had to find something else as an outlet.
Sure.
And find something else, and it's spending time with her and giving back as much as I can, helping out, we talked about before, helping out Miss Carly at the shelter.
Okay.
And work. I finally have a career, not just a job.
Okay, sure.
So I've been doing my best to try to get that to where it needs to be. So,
okay.
And everything's going well.
Nice. So you have just one child?
Yes.
Okay.
10-year-old little girl.
Okay.
Amazing little girl.
Yeah.
Young lady now.
Yeah.
So, but it's been absolutely, the relationship that her and I have now has, the last year and a half, 2 years, I stopped being a father and I became a dad.
Okay.
Which, if anybody has been through addiction or has been through anything like I've been through, being there is not being present. Mm-hmm. And being a dad is really cool.
Yeah, I agree. What's your daughter's name?
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Okay. So Mackenzie's 10, and she's in what grade?
She just started 5th grade.
Okay.
So she goes to Byron.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. She's, like I said, she loves school and she's athletic. So we have a blast together.
Okay.
And I spoiled her rotten trying to make up for everything in the past. Mm-hmm. And now I'm trying to get that fine line of, now I still have to be dad and yet be her best friend, and
sure,
we're working on that.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to take it back once you give it to them.
Yeah.
So we're slowly weeding that in.
Well, and I think also, I know I have a 23-year-old. My son Caleb's 23, and my daughter Sierra will be 21 here in a couple weeks. And I know for me, it's very much it's a journey. It's a process of it changes over different aspects of it, and I think that element of being able to pour into them, but now that, and you'll get into your story here in a little bit, but now that you can be there emotionally present, then you don't have to feel guilty and then just do things out of guilt, right?
Right, and some of it, and most of it, not some of it, most of it was guilt.
Yeah.
And I got really lucky. My ex-wife is my best friend in the world, supported me through the whole thing. I'm not naive to think that she did it all for me. Mm-hmm. She did it to make sure her daughter had a father in her life.
Yeah.
She's getting remarried, and great guy, mm-hmm. and I couldn't ask for anything as a provider and as a role model for her. It's just not me.
Yeah.
And I had to make sure I stepped up, and that's one of the main reasons I got clean was because I wanted to be a part of her life. My father left when I was 7. I didn't want her to go through that.
Sure.
And it was miserable for me. One of the reasons I went through the path that I went through, I did didn't want her to go through the same path.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead. Obviously, you were involved with athletics when you were growing up.
Yeah.
And when did the sports become part of your life?
As early as I can remember. It's always been a part of our family's life.
Okay.
My brother was an outstanding athlete, basketball, baseball. I was more football. I was trying to differentiate myself since I've been little, trying to do something different.
Okay.
So, plus I was horrible at basketball. So Football and wrestling were mine too. I played baseball as a kid.
Okay.
So our father was big into sports as well.
Okay.
He was the yeller, the screamer.
Okay.
Brother took to it well. I didn't.
Okay. And your brother's older than you?
Yes, he's 6 years older.
6 years older. And where'd you guys go to high school?
High school, we both went to East, and my nephew went to East as well.
Oh, okay. All right. So then, what year did you graduate?
I graduated in '93, Larry in '88, and Scott be 2 years ago, so 16, 17.
Okay. So then you were coach. Your wrestling coach and football coach was Giardini.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The whole Giardini family was a part of my life for 4 years.
Yeah. So I know them quite well. And then Mike West,
Yes.
Coach West is a good friend of mine as well.
Yeah.
So they do just a phenomenal job at East.
Giardini was Perry was a hell of a wrestling coach.
Yeah.
And then the brothers were too. I mean, I had him freshman year, and then when I was wrestling varsity, so football had him.
Yeah.
So I never got away from him.
Yeah. Good guys, great family.
Yes.
And the irony is I knew Terry, his brother, and I worked at a psychiatric hospital together. I was one of the unit counselors, and he was a teacher at Oakwood Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Even before I met, and this would have been like in 1990, 91-ish, that
Right.
time period, even before I even knew Perry and everybody. So.
Well, and the weird thing is too is when they're coaching you, and then you get older, and then you see him in a band.
Yeah.
Terry, you're sitting there, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very surreal.
Yeah. So sports were a big part of your life. You played sports all through high school, at least football and wrestling.
Yes.
Through high school, and your brother was a standout athlete, but he was a few years older than you.
Yeah.
And so, how old were you when mom and dad split?
Dad left when I was 7, and
Okay.
He was just a very bad man. And watching him do what he did to my mom and the kids, it was, for me, being that young, very hard to watch, and especially what he did to my mom. It still affects my mom today, and she's in her 70s.
Okay.
And a lot of the stuff that I grew up with, I don't know, it was real hard for me to, I was trying to be so far left of what he was, and trying to break away from just everything that he was about.
Okay.
And he left when I was 7. I never seen him again for, I think, 15 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and he left us he left us broke and homeless. And my mom was trying to raise 3 kids.
Okay.
And we weren't the easiest 3 kids to raise either. So.
Okay. So the impression that Dad left because of choices he was making and how he interacted, that was all pre-7.
Yeah.
And if you were gonna capture that a little bit about what that was like, again, these are early memories, right? And but it's crazy when we have these early memories of how strong they can be from an emotional level. What would be something, if you think back to that may have carried forward in either in high school or even afterwards?
Guilt. I felt guilty that we couldn't stop him from doing what he did to my mom.
Okay. Was it domestic violence?
Yeah.
Battery? Okay.
Yeah. And it was in front of our faces. He wasn't, and he did it to the kids as well. I mean, it was hard for me to watch. And I think that part of it has stayed with me for a long time.
Okay.
Not being able to stop him, and we tried. I mean, we all tried to stop him from doing it to her and doing it to us. And it was a miserable thing to watch, and especially when she didn't deserve it. No woman deserves it.
Sure. The word that came to my mind, especially that young, right? And obviously your dad, regardless of how big of a person he was, he obviously is bigger than you guys, right? But just the idea of just feeling powerless and just not being able to do things. So that, like you said, it's
a horrible feeling. And no matter what you did, it's like being an addict. No matter what you're trying to do, nothing's working. And you can tell yourself anything. You can try to do what everybody's telling you to do. And when it doesn't work, the guilt and the shame of yourself, it carries with you for a long time.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit. So, in high school, you were playing sports,
Yeah.
right? And obviously doing the school thing. Graduated from high school. What happens after that?
I started getting in trouble my senior year, so they actually sent me to Florida. My family sent me to Florida to stay with my father.
Okay.
Which I was not even remotely fond of. However, that's what they decided to do, and I wasn't 18 yet. So I had to move in with him, and I was there for 6 months, and it was miserable. It was absolutely the most miserable 6 months of my life. He never changed. He was the same guy. Same guy to the wife he had then, same way to the kids. It was,
okay.
And I packed my stuff, and he went to work, and I packed my stuff up and got in a car and drove straight to my grandma's, 18 hours straight.
Okay. So when, if you can remember back, your senior year, when in your senior year did you go to Florida?
Right before football season.
Oh, okay. So it was the beginning of your senior year. So you didn't play for Giardini.
No, my senior year, I played in St. Cloud.
Okay.
So that's where I went to high school at.
Okay.
So, and that was a new school, and it was just miserable. And like I said, that's 6-7 months. Nothing had changed. He was still the same guy. And I was fighting. I was just then realizing that I had a problem, and it was getting worse, and then down there didn't help. It was worse down there than it was here.
So when you said that you were getting in trouble up here and you had a problem, like what was going on?
The drinking. Okay. And it wasn't into much else besides that. It was just a lot of drinking.
Okay. And when did alcohol first come into your life? How old were you?
It'd be 7th grade, going into 7th grade.
Going into 7th grade, it's the first time you drank.
Yeah.
And then when was the first time? Was that the first time you got drunk too?
No, the first time I got drunk was the end of 7th grade year.
Okay.
And that's when I started, and then it never stopped.
So before you were experimenting, and then all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but by the time of the end of 7th grade, then it's like you had discovered something.
Yeah.
A lot of time people who talk about the journey of addiction, they talk about their experience with that substance, the experience with alcohol or whatever it may be. What was that for you? What purpose did alcohol serve?
I didn't feel anything. I felt nothing. And for that time that I was drunk, I was happy, and I didn't feel anything. And the more time went on, the more pressure that was put on me through sports or through grades or through whatever, I went to that more and more and more. And it followed me till 20 months ago. Okay. And it got progressively worse because the guilt got worse, the shame got worse, the embarrassment of me being an embarrassment to not only my family, but to the people's lives that I had affected. And the lives that I had come across that, I mean, I was a thief and a cheat, and I was a bad person. It wasn't me. And it was something had a hold of me that I couldn't control anymore, and that bothered me more than anything. And when I was alone, I couldn't deal with the problems. I didn't know how to. And growing up, my brother did the best that he could, trying to be a role model for me and a father figure, but he was young too. Oh, yeah. And he was dealing with his own stuff. Right. So for me, I just grew up about 20 months ago.
Yeah, sure.
So it's been a long road for me to get to where I'm at. I never had anything to show me the right path, to show me, how to deal with emotions or how to have any kind of coping skills. I never knew anything.
Right. Well, it's interesting, and the reason why I asked that question about what purpose did alcohol serve, you go back watching what was happening in your household when mom was getting beat up and feeling that sense of powerlessness and and internalizing that guilt and all the other things that were going on. And even though dad's gone now you get different types of hardships, right? You get different types of things going on. And then when you discovered that alcohol could serve this purpose of, you said not feel bad, not feel guilt, not feel
everything. And so the powerlessness is right. I had no idea when I drank, nothing mattered. Everything went away.
Right. And there's such a perpetual cycle, right? So I drink to not feel anything or feel bad about anything, but while I'm drinking, bad things happen, and all this. It's just cycle, right?
And the next day is horrible.
Yeah.
The next day is worse, so you drink more.
So you leave Florida, you come up and stay at Grandma's house, and this is your mom's mom.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's here in Illinois.
Yes.
Right.
She, when everything was happening when I was younger, Grandma always took me. I spent summers at Grandma's.
Okay.
She was my best friend in the world.
Yeah.
And she, I called to come home, and my family didn't want me. They weren't going to allow me to come home, and Grandma said, "Doors open."
Okay.
So,
and she lived in Rockford?
Yeah, she lived in New Melford.
Okay.
Yep, little farmhouse out there that was awesome. Grew up, had fishing and hunting, you name it.
Sure.
They ride motorcycles and
sure.
Yeah, that's where I got my first love of racing. Was my grandfather used to check on my mom's race car. My mom raced in '79 through '82, and when the first time I got in the Roadrunner, I was hooked, and I didn't get to race until 2004, later in life. But I was hooked when I got it.
So your mom raced at Rockford Speedway?
Yeah, she actually created Women on Wheels.
Really?
It was Women on Wheels then. It was her and one other lady. She was lapping her by second lap, so she started racing with the men, and she had 35 feature wins, and she went to late model. Wayne Lensing actually built her first car for her.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. So how'd your mom get into racing? I know we're totally off on a tangent.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever, but
when it comes to racing, I can go off on a tangent. Mom got into racing. Dad was a real big race fan.
Your father?
My father.
Yeah. Okay.
And he lived a different image and a different life than what we knew, but he liked racing and put her in a car, and my mom could drive.
Okay.
I thought I could drive, and we had progressively. I started out, I was horrible, progressively gotten better, and we ended up winning championships at the end. And even when I was winning even at my best day, at my mom's peak, I couldn't touch her.
Yeah. So your father, right, got your mom into racing.
Yeah.
So she didn't race when she was a kid. It's after they met.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. It's one of the things that we talk about, and we'll get into here in a little bit too. But this idea that even in sometimes the worst scenarios, good things can come out of those things.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that necessarily we want to go back into that awful place, but it's as a result of that ugly place. Sometimes there's lessons that can be learned and things that come out of that. And so, as much as your dad was a bad person and did bad things, he for whatever reason saw something in your mom and gave her a space and encouragement. And sounds like and I can't imagine how expensive a hobby that is.
It's pricey.
Yeah.
So it's very pricey, and he fought his own addictions too. So,
sure.
And now realizing that, then he was a bad man. He's still doing the same thing he's doing then. So, not judging him whatsoever. Yeah. He's got his own thing to deal with, as I have mine.
Yeah. So, you come back and you live with Grandma, right? Yeah. Now you're 18 years old, and your high school's done, but you haven't. Did you graduate or no?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And this will be the first time my daughter's hearing this.
Oh, okay.
So this will be the first time that my daughter's going to have questions for me when I get home.
Okay.
So, no, I did not graduate. Never had the opportunity to.
Okay.
And I did go back and get my GED, though.
Oh, okay.
So I did do that.
Okay.
That was just for me.
Yeah.
And not being able to tell little white lies or not being able to lie and trusting in the truth. Mm-hmm. I was hoping it wasn't going to come up today. Mm-hmm. But no, I did not graduate.
Okay. Well, the fact that you went back to school or to get your GED, which then allows you to do the same as a high school diploma does,
right?
That takes courage and that takes determination. Yeah. And sometimes, with the way the program's set up, is sometimes even harder than trying to get through the second half of your senior year.
Yeah. Getting through the senior year would have been, especially at the point I was at in my life, life,
Yeah.
I'd have never made it anyway.
Yeah.
So
but I understand. There may be some embarrassment, but there's no shame in not graduating because you had the courage and the tenacity to go back and get your GED. So,
right. And the funny part is now I'm going back to school. I got my lead abatement license, and I'm going for asbestos, and now I can't get enough of school.
Okay.
So again, I'm not having a job, I'm having a career. Now I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing when we become that. They talk about being a lifelong learner, and it's when it clicks that, and some of the distractions that are not there anymore. So there's a little bit more energy than before.
Right.
A little bit more opportunity for focus.
A lot more time.
Yeah. And the memory calls a little bit better now too. Right?
A lot better.
Yeah. So because of not, because how old were you when you went back and got your GED? How old was that?
I was 22.
Okay, so it was still young adult years, right? And you had different jobs, and then you got married to Mackenzie's mom.
Yes.
Okay, and when did you meet her?
I met her at a bar.
Okay.
She was a farm girl, lived in Stillman, and just walked over to her, and we hit it off, and we were married, and then I think she's gonna kill me. We were together for 20 years.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
it was a long road, and I helped take care of my grandma because my grandfather passed away. I was in Florida actually. My grandfather passed away, which hit me really hard, and they never let me come back for his funeral. So I wanted to come back.
Oh, and this was when you were staying with your dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that really hurt, not to be able to come back and see my grandfather as big of a part of my life that he was, for my family not to bring me back for it. It pissed me off. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've still gotten over it. And then when he passed away and I came back, me and Grandma, she basically helped me when I was younger, so I wanted to be there for her. Mm-hmm. In her later years. She got sick and she had leukemia, and Donna was gracious enough to understand that and put her life on hold so I could take care of Grandma. And my drinking got worse, and I think she was waiting for that to calm down as well. So, and then when Grandma passed away, about a couple months before, she had asked for me to get married. She wanted to watch me walk down the aisle and see me get married.
Yeah.
And I asked Donna to marry me, and she said yes. We were married 3 months later.
Okay. And Grandma was there.
Grandma was there.
Okay.
Grandma actually passed away on lap 18 of my feature at Freeport when I won the championship in 2007. I took the lead on lap 17 and she passed away. Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty special lady.
She was cool.
Yeah.
She was very important to me.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot, about that, the importance of having somebody believe in you.
Yeah.
And that they have an unconditional regard, and that they believe in you when you don't think you can believe in you.
I could do no wrong in Grandma's eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be lying straight in front of her. Sorry. It could be right in front of her, and it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she got sick that she started being a little bit more honest with me, which was different. But there was nobody better.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, she had me. So,
yeah. It is amazing that how powerful something like alcohol, right, can be. That in spite of different people like Grandma, right, Grandpa, different things like that. That I shouldn't say the alcohol. It's what the alcohol perceivably does that we don't want to let go of it, because the fear of like in your case, what do you think? Well, before we jump into that, when Grandma dies, right? And now what's and you and Donna are together.
Yeah.
Is Mackenzie born at this time?
No.
Okay.
We weren't. We were trying to have. We were married, and I went from Grandma's to the house that she had bought for us to live in, and I'd moved in there after Grandma's passing. And we were trying to have kids. I wasn't able to with the chemo that I had for the tumors I had in my back. So there was a slim chance we were gonna. And of course, alcohol and New Year's and all that good stuff. And she came home one day and she said, "I'm pregnant."
Okay.
And I couldn't have been happier. Scared to death.
Sure.
Couldn't have been happier. And we have Mackenzie, and it was a blessing.
So, did I catch that you just slipped in there that you had you had cancer or tumors?
Tumors.
What was that about?
I have tumors in my spine. We caught them early. I think we caught them when I was 24, 25, right around there. They're growing on my spine, and to relieve the pressure on my spine, because I was having back problems, we didn't know what was going on. And then they found that I had tumors on my spine. Well, they grow gradually on your spine. And once they get to your neck, they'll actually grow, and they'll actually snap my spinal cord.
Okay.
So they grow at like a centimeter a year.
Okay.
I've never had to touch them again, and I go about every 5 years just to get to see what level they're at. Okay. And I haven't thought about it. Every 5 years I go in, I'm a little nervous to see where they're at, because once they get to a certain point, then, it is what it is. So, but last time I went, they were where they're supposed to be, and I can still live a healthy, normal life. So.
Sure. So the chemo that you were taking in your early mid-20s or whatever, that was to help
slow the tumors down.
Slow them down. Okay. Yeah. And you haven't had to have that treatment since then?
No.
Okay. Gotcha. And so going, because I think of just a handful of different things, and just life, right? That we get these scares and get these different things that are going on. But again, when we're anesthetizing things through alcohol, it's almost like a blur, right?
You don't think about it.
Yeah.
And then when you realize that you have it, then it hits, and then you forget about it again.
Yeah.
So I put it in the back of my mind, and it doesn't affect me at all, and it doesn't hurt. It's just knowing it's there.
Right.
So another thing I'll have to explain to my daughter later.
Sure. And just have to monitor it. Right? Yeah. So then you and Dawn had a life with Mackenzie for how many years were you guys together after Mackenzie was born? Together as a couple.
Together as a couple, we were together. We got divorced 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So Mackenzie was 5 or 6.
Okay.
Right around in there. Again, I don't remember the divorce. It was right at the beginning of the start of me going down the wrong path. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't anybody's fault but my own. And I tried to make it work as best as I could. It wasn't that I wanted to stay with the marriage with Dawn because I had met somebody else. It was I wanted to wake up and go to bed with my daughter every morning. I wanted to, wake up in the morning, say good morning, and get her breakfast, and then tuck her in every night. That's the part that I had the most problem with. Dawn and I are way better friends, and we're closer now than we ever were married. And again, like I said earlier to you, I'd be naive to think that it was all for me. She was doing it to make sure her daughter had the father that she should have. And she believes in me, and it is somewhat for me. At the end of the day, she's a mom, and what's best for her daughter is best for her daughter.
Sure, yeah. So obviously, you're, one, as you were saying, it was a miracle, right?
Right.
That Dawn could get pregnant, right? And then you have Mackenzie. Sounds like she's healthy. Sounds like everything's great.
Yes.
And you'd already made a promise that you didn't want to be the type of dad that your dad was. But this thing, right? Alcohol,
right?
And what alcohol supposedly was doing, right? Because it does it, but then it also lies to us, right? It causes these other things that go on. So as much as it serves its purpose to not feel bad feelings, right? It perpetuates the problems, right?
It makes them 10 times worse. And now I'm doing coke, so now I'm an addict as well.
Okay.
And that part of my life is when the problem started happening.
Okay. How did cocaine get into the picture?
A couple of friends had it one night, and I never tried it, and they said that you can drink longer on it. Well, if you can drink longer on something, I'm all for it.
Okay.
So, and then it turned into, I stopped. A lot of times I wasn't drinking, I was doing coke.
Okay.
And that was the hardest thing to give up, was the coke. It wasn't the booze. When I was drinking, there was problems. When I mixed the two together, that's when it started to go. Everything started to go downhill.
So what? Just like alcohol, what did cocaine? What was the purpose? What did it do?
At first, it was just something to party with, something to drink longer, stay out longer. You know, and I shouldn't have been doing it anyway.
Right. I
should have been more of a father and been at home. And then it turned into, for that 5 minutes, because it doesn't last very long, for that 5 minutes, my brain stopped working. I wasn't thinking about everything. I wasn't worried about everything. I could just, I wasn't myself, but I wasn't worried about everything that I'd done wrong. I wasn't worried about all the mistakes that I've made, all the people's lives that I affected. And then the more coke I did, the less I thought about it.
Okay.
And then when I wasn't on it, I thought about it, and it hit me, and then I drank, and it was always back and forth. And and the people's lives, especially Dawn got out, and she should have gotten out earlier. Dawn got out at the right time. Mackenzie was 5, and she needed to get her out of that situation. The woman I had met and spent 5 years with, unfortunately for her, she was right in the midst of my downfall. However, what she doesn't realize is she kept me alive for a long time. And that was the best part about our relationship, was being best friends and me being able to talk to her. And me at my worst, she still seen good in me. And that was the part that I had needed, and the part that she didn't understand at the time, and probably still doesn't, is she kept me alive for a long time. And my addiction and my use of alcohol whenever possible, she wasn't on that same road. She wasn't on that same path. So for her, it had to be miserable. And she's seen just the demise of me and just the person that I turn into. The few moments I was sober, she's seen that. And I think that's what she held on to for a long time, is she knew who I really was. And she believed in me, and she would do anything in the world for me. It just got to the point where people hit rock bottom for a day, 2 days, and then they get help. I was in it for a year. It's a long time.
Yeah, and we'll get into that bottom, right? So I think we go into this dark place, right? That and for this given amount of time where it's just everything we touch turns rust, right? Everything just goes bad, right? And it perpetuates. We keep just digging farther into the holes farther and farther.
Right.
I think it's when I ask that question as much as I possibly can when I'm talking to someone about either being addicted to a substance or an activity, the hook usually is that thing of how does it serve them, and in both the alcohol and the cocaine, and I imagine other drugs serve the same purpose, maybe just a little bit differently, for you to not feel bad, not feel guilty, not feel ashamed. It took that for a moment, took that away for whatever the amount of time was.
Right.
And that becomes the seduction of it, right? And because of that feeling early on that you had as a young person, watching what was going on in the household, anytime that you were going to feel that way, you're going to do anything you could to get rid of it.
Right.
And was there attempts to get sober?
I told myself I was. Okay. I never really did anything to do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I realized I was turning into my father that I needed help. Okay. And everybody was telling me I needed help. Yeah. Everybody was wanting me to get help. Living with the shame and the guilt, and then living with the person that you're trying to change for, in the last 5 years, and we had lived together for 2. Seeing her every day made it worse. Nothing to do with her, it was to do with me. And it's not until you get sober, not until you realize what's going on, that you're running from them. You're running from everybody that you've hurt. Yeah. You don't want to hurt anybody anymore. Yeah. And however, you don't want to lose them either. Right. So you're in a bad spot. Yeah. And you're trying to do everything that you can to hold on and to go away. And then when you tell a lie or when you do something that's miserable, as I was doing, you don't know what to do. The first thing you do is you go get high. Yeah. And then it goes away. Yeah. Temporarily. Yeah. And then it's worse the next day. Yeah. Because the shame that you did what you said you weren't going to do. Right. It's that they talk about that. In I can't remember where. I think it's in Ephesians, or it's in the New Testament, where St. Paul talks about this idea is I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. Right. Right. And it's this. In the program they talk about insanity. Doing the same thing. Yeah. Right. So 20 months ago, you got sober, and what were the events that led to why this time, and how did that all come about? What was leading up to it? The year I told you that I had hit rock bottom. Yeah. The ex-girlfriend, we were living together. I destroyed her life. I took her down with me, and she moved away to live with her best friend, and that absolutely, if I didn't think I was at rock bottom, I was then. And we had still had some sort of relationship at that point, and a week after she left is when the year started of just the downward spiral of my rock bottom. Sure. Suicide attempts, and I was trying to cut myself every day by drinking and getting high and just not caring. I wasn't eating. I was sleeping in the home that I had lived in with Dawn. I was sleeping in. It was foreclosed on, no heat, no electric, no nothing, and that's where I was sleeping at. So it was, I couldn't face what I did to her. I couldn't face what I did to my family, the embarrassment. I've been arrested I don't know how many times now going through this whole thing.
And what were you arrested for typically?
DUIs, warrants. Okay. I mean, just
alcohol-related or drug-related stuff.
Drug-related stuff, and just not caring. Yeah. And a lot of times I was being arrested on a DUI going to get more coke or going to get more booze. And late at night, I just couldn't face anything anymore. The pain I caused my family, the embarrassment, and another reason why I told you before why I'm doing the show now is I don't want anybody to go through that. I did everything wrong leading up to rehab, and when I got out of rehab during recovery, I made a million mistakes. And leading up to the point where I finally said I'm done, and I had hurt everybody that I could hurt. I was like I said before, I was a cheat, I was a thief, I was a manipulating, I was a bad person, and it wasn't who I was. The only thing that mattered to me was the drugs and the alcohol. No one else mattered. Unless I was sober and alone, and then nobody would give me attention, I made everybody else's lives miserable. Because why weren't they paying attention to me? Sure, right. Why would they? There's no reason to. Right. So I told everybody at Christmas I was going to rehab. I had a bed. I got a call on the 26th that they had given my bed to somebody else. So now I'm telling everybody I'm going to rehab. I'm telling everybody I'm not lying anymore. I'm not doing this, doing that. I'm going to get right. I'm going to go to rehab. And now I have no bed. So now I got to tell everybody that, and they're going to say, yeah, right, whatever. Sure you had a bed. Sure you were going to rehab. I couldn't do it. So the money that I had, I got 2 8 balls, got 3 bottles of booze, went into Elgin, started drinking in Rockford, went to dinner, drank at dinner, went to the boat, ended up getting kicked off the boat, and when I got kicked off the boat, 10 minutes after I got kicked off the boat, I was arrested for a DUI in King County. Got arrested. My bond was $40,000. My family was done with me at this point because I go from going to rehab to being arrested for a DUI. And that's when I woke up the second day in jail. Nobody would talk to me. Family was done. Dawn was the only one that answered my call, and she was screening them actually, and because she was going to leave me there too. The ex was, she didn't want to talk to me because she didn't want to deal with it. Again, me promising her things that weren't coming true. I wanted them to. I had every intention on doing something. It just never happened.
Sure.
It wasn't because it was will, intent, or malice or anything like that. It's just, it had a hold of me.
You didn't know how to do it.
I had no clue how to do it.
Right, yeah.
I was laying in my cell, and it was the third day of detox, and they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted help. And they said, well, do you want to detox? I said, yes, I want to start detoxing because I want to go straight from here to rehab. And the mental health lady there, spectacular lady, she said, I'll help you get help if you want to, but you got to want it. I said, okay. My third day laying in my cell, and I've done the whole, God, please get me out of this. I won't do it again. I actually did it. And I actually put my arms out, and I looked up and I told him, I'm done, but give me something. Show me something that you're here and that I know it's real. From the middle of my back to my shoulders, something picked me up off of the 6-foot slab that I was on, set me back down. About 2 inches, but it picked me up and it set me back down. And like now, I started crying, and it was, you know, when you get your teeth done and that Novocaine hits in, it went from the top of my head all the way to my toes. And I've been sober ever since.
Okay.
And when I got out of jail, I knew that something was working. The public defender got me ROR instead of $40,000 bond. I went straight to rehab.
Where'd you go?
Gateway.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Phenomenal place.
Yeah.
I would recommend anybody to go. Spent 31 days in. I got out. I see my daughter for a weekend, and I had a job on Monday, making $9 an hour. Homeless, living in a motel, living wherever I could. Started the relationship back up with my ex. My ex-wife couldn't help me anywhere else. However, she could be my friend and get me through this, and she didn't keep my daughter away from me. She didn't do anything else. After rehab, my mom and my brother and my sister, my family started coming back in. They were at arm's length yet.
Sure.
Still trying to keep me at arm's length, and some of the stuff that they did right out of rehab, it was like they were setting me up to fail. And getting out of rehab, if you don't have a plan, and this is something that you need to do, if you don't have a plan coming out of rehab, you need to have one, because you're set up to fail.
Yeah.
I come out with $7.34 in my pocket and nowhere to go, no job. It's easy just to go back to what you were doing.
Right.
However, I had no chance at life, period, or with the ex, or with my daughter, or with my family whatsoever if I touched a bottle, if I got high. And I wanted to do it on my own. The first year out of rehab, I did everything right. I was trying to do everything right. And God had blessed me. And there's no question in my mind He touched me then. And I was going to AA, going to therapy, walking back and forth to work. And I got an apartment through a guy at AA. You know, finally found an apartment. It's no bigger than this room. I'm still there.
Yeah.
It's clean.
Yeah.
I've repainted it 13 times.
And what were you doing? What job? You got that first $9 an hour job?
Working at Concentric. I was working as putting John Deere fuel pumps together.
Okay.
And cat fuel pumps, and putting in 60 hours a week, doing side jobs on the side to make ends meet. So
sure.
I was doing anything I could.
Sure. Okay. When we were talking earlier, you talked about 20 months of being sober, and that would count originally starting in detox in jail. And
December 27th of 2017.
And then Lakeville, right, when you went to Gateway. And then, but then you said that 6 months ago is when you got clean.
Yeah.
And what shifted? What's the difference between that?
The difference between being sober and being clean, sober, I didn't drink or get high. However, I was still making the mistakes that I did when I was drunk, when I was an alcoholic and I was an addict. I was still telling white lies. I was still trying to be somebody that I wasn't to people, because I just wanted to be. As an addict and as an alcoholic, you want that instant gratification, always. You don't have to have it. You can just be you for a week or 2 or 3 weeks and not have somebody tell me you're doing great or you're awesome or, thank you for doing this. I was reaching for that and wanting from everybody, whether it was family members or whether it was my ex-girlfriend. And I was breaking promises constantly, so I wasn't sober. You got to retrain your brain, and that's when you have to have a plan coming out of rehab. You have to retrain yourself not to do the things that you were doing before. As hard as being an addict and being an alcoholic is, it's just as hard being with that, being in a relationship with that person, because not only are you dealing with their problems and them trying to get clean and doing the right thing, the promises they break to you, the dealing with your own stuff on the other side of it, your own drama, your family telling you to get away from the alcoholic and the addict. You don't see that. You're focused on yourself, and you're focused on the instant gratification that it wasn't until I lost her and lost everything that I had to change. I had to. Being sober is not being clean. You're not living the life you're supposed to. And if God does have a plan for me, which I think He does, I had to get clean. I had to stop lying, trust in the truth. And of what I had with my family, with my daughter, with my ex-girlfriend, if it's real, it will come back. Right. Trust in the truth. And I have Bob and I, which you apologize for, we had a shirt for you, but licensing and other things to try to make it the way we had it designed is causing a bit of a problem. Okay. But it's Road to Recovery. It's an RR on the back. It's Trust in the Truth here. We were making one for you today. Okay. Proceeds are going to go to Miss Carly's, and we're going to set up something that when you get out of rehab and you're going to AA and you don't have anything, we're trying to set something up to where we can give them money to maybe get a hotel for a night. Sure. Maybe just a pack of cigarettes. Yeah. It goes a long way when you're going through that. Yeah. And we're trying to set that up now through the T-shirt sales. Gotcha. And we wanted to give you one. Okay. However, we ran into a snag last night that licensing, we can't do it right now. Sure. I understand. So, well, thank you for the gesture. Yes. Thank you. And now I'm just... If I'd have done this 6 months ago, I think my life would have been completely down a different path. Now I just got to trust in the truth and trust in myself and trust that God has a plan. And I can't make up for what I did. I can't. You can't make somebody trust you. My family slowly has come around. My ex-wife is getting better about being able to do the same thing. The ex, on the other hand, you can't make somebody trust you. You can't make somebody love you. You have to do things for them to trust. You have to do things and not want the instant gratification and let it just go at its own pace. So as hard as it is, and that's why I told you before why I'm here, I want people to not go through what I've went through, the shame and the guilt, and learn from what I've done.
Well, I think you just made a great point, is that regardless if it's your family or McKenna or Dawn, Mackenzie, regardless of who it may be, yes, they have to work on being able to go to that space of being vulnerable to trust. Your responsibility is how to work on being trustworthy.
Correct.
And that's, and you said something earlier. I mean, in the seventh grade is when you started using a substance for immediate change of feelings, right? And so there was a lot of years that there wasn't development and how to delay immediate gratification, how to play the long story or the long game instead of how do I make this happen right now. Right. And I think you said something earlier that there's this temptation, right? We start doing good and we start making good choices, and we start doing good choices one day at a time, and next thing you know, we start counting how many one days at a time we have,
right?
And then we want like some proverbial reward for doing that, right? And
I keep thinking balloons and unicorns are going to come out every time I do something good,
right?
But it's just about being human. It's about being an adult and being a man, which I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And how people have gone through their whole lives sober, dealing with the pain and heartbreak and just loss of life and everything else. How you guys do it, or how you did it, I have no idea. Yeah. It's a learning curve for me.
Well, and partly, it's this idea that popped in my head when you were just talking is that I don't see many times when a police officer pulls someone over and gives them $120 for going the speed limit.
Right.
It just doesn't. That doesn't happen, right? And so you don't get immediate gratification for doing the next right thing. That's the long game.
Right.
I'm doing the right thing because it's the right thing for me to do, so that I don't have to deal with covering up a lie, the shame of here I go again. It's those little things about staying in that space of integrity.
Right. And I had a good friend of mine tell me the same thing, and it was actually my ex's best friend, and she had told me, don't say anything until it comes to fruition, which I wish she would have told me 6 months ago. However, for me, it's so hard to get to that point, because again, you're trying not to lose something, and trying to hold on to it at the same time, and you're trying to get better, and you're trying to do the right thing. I want people to understand that as an addict and as an alcoholic, you have to remember the other side of it. And as much as you're jealous of the friendships that they have, or they're talking about you and you're not a part of it, or they were really close and they're like sisters and best friends, and I expect that from me too, and I can't.
Right.
I can't expect the same friendship from her, and I was jealous of it for a long time and mad about it. Now that I'm seeing things the way they should be, and it's losing things are hard. Losing people in your life, losing your best friend, I think is because her and I we're best friends. Losing that part of it and being alone and not having somebody to talk to. There's only so much I can tell my ex-wife.
Sure.
That part of it, and I think Helen Keller said it best when she said, I'd rather walk through darkness with someone than walk in the light alone. Now I'm in the light. Now it's like, you can come back now. It's just not happening.
Yeah. Well, and I know this is not easy, but if you keep doing the next right thing, if you continue to work on your recovery, work on, being clean and exploring all the things that are new now, right? Because of discovering, learning, the fact that you have a career now, not a job, exploring that piece as you doing the stuff that you're doing with Bob and with
Miss Carly.
All those things can start so that you don't put all your eggs in another person's basket, right? And if you trust that process, right, said something that happened in that jail cell, right? You had a spiritual experience that not everyone has as dramatic as that, right? And for some of us, we needed that dramatic, or we just don't get it, right? we just we need a bigger brick dropped in our head to get it,
For whatever reason, everything has to be beat into my head.
Yeah. So, but right now, as I listen to you talk about your story, is that things that happened and didn't happen, right? Things that happened when you're younger, but also the things that were not there, right? The lessons that were not taught, or all the lessons that you're learning right now. And that time for that partner will come.
Right.
This time you want to be able to bring your strength to them.
Right.
And not need them to bring their strength to you, but you bring your strength to them.
And that you couldn't have said that better, because that's the piece that I'm having the most trouble with. The best version of me is not good enough right now. And that's what I'm struggling with, because, again, rainbows and unicorns should be flowing everywhere, and it should be instant gratification coming back. It's not. Okay. And I can't wrap my head around, if I'm the best version of myself and I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing moving forward, and I can, like you said, you don't have to bring your A game anymore. Okay. I've got it. Okay. And it's not there. I'm not able to grab it. I'm not able to, grab her hand and walk away. Yeah. I'm having a real hard time with that.
Sure.
And it's to the point where you fill the void, and it's got me in trouble a lot about filling the void. I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to fix the void so I don't need to fill it anymore, and that I can bring my A game to her or to my family, especially my daughter. Yeah. My daughter has been through a ton, which a lot of people will frown on it. I told her everything, the absolute truth, because she's now been through AA. She knows what it's like to be at the bottom, and for Dad to fight and keep fighting for her, and to be at the spot that I'm at now. She's got the best of both worlds. She knows that if she gives up, or if she doesn't give 100%, I am going to be in her. Yeah. And as hard as it is on her, and children know a lot more than we think, and they're stronger than what we think. She's a very well-rounded little girl. She's becoming a tremendous young lady, and I couldn't be more proud of her. Yeah. And I'm sorry for what happened, and it kills me that I put her through it. Yeah. She had a great mom to get her through, and now she's got a dad finally. So
yeah. You said something earlier about the idea, and just like with your daughter, she can give 100%, right? And using the metaphor of sports,
right?
Someone can give 100%, but they still may not be ready to start.
Yep.
And they could be working as hard as they possibly can, and giving 100%, doing everything you want them to do, but they may not be ready to start. And that's not a character judgment call.
Right.
They just may not be ready yet. That doesn't mean they're not going to be ready. It just means right now they're not ready. Because you take somebody who's given 100% and they're 15 years old, they got all the tools, but you put them out on varsity in football, they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Because they're not ready yet.
Yeah. And when I learn that, and when I get a grasp of that, I'll teach my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm still learning that.
Yeah.
And
it's okay to be learning it.
Yeah, but
that doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
I was going to say, what word can I say that you're in this, and it's, I'm on the cusp. I'm getting my license back in a couple of months.
Sure.
And I haven't drove in 2 years, 20 months. Beforehand, everything was so far down the road that I couldn't see it.
Yep.
Now, everything is within arm's reach, and I still can't have any of it. And what more can I do, or how can I speed this up?
But that's the problem. It's not about speeding it up.
I know.
It's about how to help me slow it down.
And that's the point I was going to make, was you have to trust the process.
Yeah.
As much as the process sucks, you have to trust it. Yeah. And again, going back to trusting in the truth of everything that I believed in, and everything that I felt, and everything that I know to be real, no matter what part of life it is for me, it will come back.
Yeah.
I might not like it, how it's coming back, but it'll get there.
Scott, I appreciate not only you coming on and sharing your story about how you got here, but I also appreciate you sharing where you're struggling right now, right? And in that, being open and being vulnerable about where you're struggling is okay. It doesn't mean the struggle is going to go away, right? And because this is just the time and space of going through that, and that is okay, because at some point here in the future, I don't know when it's going to be, you'll then look back and go, you remember when I was so impatient? Remember when I was going crazy? Well, this is what I did to not go as crazy. Right. And I still didn't have to go back to using. This is what I was doing so that I didn't pick up the phone and ask the same question that I already knew what the answer was, or whatever, right? And I appreciate you coming on and talking about that, because the reality is that recovery is tough, and because it's real life. Yeah. It's just like we're doing this show here in a couple weeks on how to utilize the arts and utilize sports to develop resiliency and transformation. And the metaphor that we talked about, you may be given 100%, but you may not be ready to start yet. Right. You're still part of the team. You're still making progress. You'll have your time.
Yeah, it's just been a long road.
Yeah, and there's no doubt.
And I say it's been a long road, but like I said, being clean and being sober, completely two different things. Yeah. And to realize that now I'm 6 months, and it just, you've got to realize that it's just not about you. Yeah. And the key thing that I wanted everybody to understand, especially from an addict and an alcoholic's point of view, you've got to take time to realize the other side of it. Yeah. You've got to realize what your family goes through. You've got to realize whether it's your son or your daughter or your ex-girlfriend or whatever, you've got to put yourself in their shoes, because until you do, you're going to keep making the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. You have to trust in yourself, and AA helps, therapy helps. At the end of the day, you got to get yourself up in the morning. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to like who you are, or they're not. Yeah. And if you're breaking promises and you're doing things and you're still lying to people, and you're trying to be somebody, and granted, it might be a week down the road that's going to happen, but if you tell them this week and it doesn't happen, you're the same guy. Yeah. You have to just learn how to shut your mouth, trust yourself, and you have to want it. Until you do, you're just going to be spinning your wheels.
Well said, my friend. Scott, again, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for, again, sharing those intimate, vulnerable moments as well. So thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us today. Listen to Scott's story. As Scott mentioned, about there's usually some underlying story of why the alcohol or drugs serve that purpose, and there also is sometimes where the lie lies. The drug or the alcohol lies to us, and so if you do need that help, continue to reach out, follow through with that help. You can change your life. Thank you very much for being with us today, and I look forward to seeing you next week.